Let's talk about bulk uploading next. Bulk uploading is a good solution for very large agencies that have the resources to adjust data that they're pulling out of another system to make it work with our system. So when you click on the bulk upload button, you'll get a nice guide helping you decide if bulk upload is something that's right for your agency. We recommend that if you're not sure, that you go ahead and try to just stick with the web upload. But if you have a strong rationale for needing to use bulk upload, you could go ahead and do this process. Just be aware that it'll be more time consuming than the web form, unless you're taking advantage of editing hundreds or thousands of rows at a time. So if your agency is hand typing data or doesn't already have clean data, or doesn't have very many clients, again, we would recommend that you do not use the bulk upload, that you just use the regular data portal. If you want to proceed with the bulk upload, we recommend that you start by cleaning up your data. So we put together a list of the most common issues that were identified when agencies would submit spreadsheets to CORE in the past. Some of these most common issues were date formatting. Dates must be formatted as month, day, and year, all numbers with slashes. If you're using Excel, you can click the short date format button to set that, but it's really important that the date is formatted correctly, and this is a very common error. We will not accept files that do not have a correctly formatted visit date. In addition, if a file is for a client who's come in before and their date of birth is in the system, we will not accept files for that client that do not have the correct date of birth matching. We must have a unique ID for each client. It shouldn't be anything that can be used to identify the client. We give you the opportunity to store a little bit of identifying information in encrypted fields through the name and date of birth fields that we've added, but the client ID should not contain identifying information. This is something CORE can see, just like the notes field. So if you want to include name and date of birth, use the actual fields for that, but the client ID should be separate and distinct. Make sure that you're using the data dictionary to only enter allowed values for variables. We do a little bit of work to make your life easier here. We do things like helping ignore capitalization errors and that kind of thing. But in general, like if you're entering county, it must be one of the counties on this list. You can't include the word county or anything extra. If you're entering race, you have to use the exact words that are on this list. The allowable values are indicated with the blue. The freeze panes has gone away. I'm going to click this button to freeze the top row. The allowable values are indicated in blue here, and you can just look through the sheet, and for each of the required fields, you can see the values that you are allowed to enter. In some cases, if it's not blue, we have guidance on what is allowable, such as age must be a number, date of birth, and visit date must be dates formatted in this way, for example. And all of these fields, every single one of the fields that's in your data dictionary must be present in order for your file to be uploaded into the system. You may not leave out any of the fields. So that's starting with agency and going all the way over to notes. And the reason that each of the columns must be included is that this is the only way that we can make sure that you intentionally left out data. We're trying to do our best to ingest the data in a way that reduces burdens for you. So if you include an extra column that you don't need to submit, we can ignore it. But we need to know that anything we're ignoring wasn't a required field. So the way that we do that is we ask you to explicitly include anything we are asking for no matter what, and just leave them blank. So if you are a QRT agency or a recovery focused agency, then you might be only reporting substance use disorder history and referral. Whereas if you're a treatment focused agency, you might only be reporting diagnosis, core initiation, and MOUD type. So no agency should get both the purple and the yellow columns here, same as it always was with the core sheet where they were hidden before. But you still need to include placeholders for those at the current time. Okay, so continuing on, so you need to really familiarize yourself with the data dictionary. There's some guidance in here about whether or not these variables are fed into the client information page. Anything that's fed into the client information page needs to be matched in the future. You always have to be consistent with it going forward. Some fields can be left blank, but agency name, visit date, and client ID cannot be left blank. The file will not be accepted if there are any rows with information that have blank values for any of these three columns. We give you a little bit of a glimpse into the validation test that we're applying to your file when we decide whether or not we are taking it. Most of the validation tests are simply that you have to have a match to one of the allowed responses. But in some cases, we have validation tests to ensure that the date of birth is a real date, it's not in the future, that kind of thing. So this is our data dictionary, and if you're going to be uploading data, you need to be very familiar with it. As you are working through your data, you also need to double check your spelling. Anything that can be entered incorrectly could be entered incorrectly. So if you choose to go this route, we've decided to give you full control over this sheet so that you can easily copy and paste things and do large operations. But that does mean that you need to double check your spelling. And finally, review your client information carefully. We create a client registry entry anytime you send in a new client. So from that moment forward, anytime you use the same client ID, the information in the file you're uploading has to match the system. You can download the information that we have for you in the data portal. You can also access the data portal and look at the client information if you need to. You can edit it. Let's say we had the wrong date of birth for someone and you were getting an error because of that. You can just edit it really quickly and then go back and complete your upload. But whatever is in that system has to match what you're inputting with your bulk uploads. Finally, after you've looked through the data dictionary, checked your fields, and made sure that you've included all your required variables, you have to save your file as a comma-separated values sheet. This is a little bit different from what you might be used to using. You might be using Excel files for the most part, but here, the only way the system will accept your data is if it's a CSV. And the reason for that is it allows us to ensure that there aren't any differences in the programs that you're using to generate the data that could cause issues while reading in the data. As a reminder, part of the main reason that this system was being created is because of persistent issues with inputting data that were collected from different agencies and across different systems. So here's an example of a comma-separated value sheet with acceptable information. This is someone who's already in the system. We've actually seen her before. This is Bertha Johnson. So let's go ahead and make a new client. And I'm just gonna create a new client here. And let's say this person's at the same agency. And the visit date is the day I'm recording this video, September 30th, 2024. Client ID is SEP30 test 01. The client's name is Emily Richards. Just completely making up the name whole cloth here. The birthday is 1/30/1990. The person lives in Fayette County. And I know the counties off the top of my head, but if I wanted to be very cautious, I could double check that Fayette is one of the allowables. One way that you can double check that something's allowed is you can just click on a column and hit Control F to search. So that's Control and the letter F if you're on PC. And you can search for F-A-Y-E. Let's just make sure we spelled that right. F-A-Y-E-T-T-E. Okay, that's spelled correctly. Next up, we have race. Let's say that this person is now black instead of white. Let's double check our data dictionary and see if that's something we can use. Okay, we have a value here that we can use for black, but we can't just enter black. We have to use the full piece of information that Core uses. So we're just going to hit Control H, and we're going to find the word black and replace it with this value we copied out of the data dictionary. And we'll hit Replace All. And just like that, it's updated to match the data dictionary. What about Hispanic ethnicity? So here, let's say we don't know. We can say that they had declined to answer. And if you put things in formatted, that's fine. It's all going to work out. So it doesn't really matter if things are capitalized or not. It doesn't really matter if they're colored. We'll look past all of that and just get down to your data. So let's say that this person is not pregnant. So we'll put no. And we can just leave this blank if we want, and we'll let the system calculate it. I'm not in the business of doing math on that. Let's look at the substance use diagnosis field. This is another tricky one. So substance use diagnosis field, we've got a few options. And the way that Core has always accepted their values is a little bit different from how you might write it normally. So let's go ahead and give them this core value for opioid use disorder and stimulant use disorder. You'll recall when we downloaded our data, I'll just pull that up again, that in the system, you can save the data with everything spelled out like this. But if you prefer the old Core way, you can just input it in the old Core way. Let's say that we know that they did initiate treatment, and they initiated treatment with buprenorphine. Well, if you've done these Core reports before for the data import, you know that that's not going to work. So you've got to actually go to the data dictionary and look at the MOUD types and figure out, oh, wait, which buprenorphine was it? And you've got to select the right one. So whichever one it is, let's say this person got Sublocade. We can then fill in information about whatever referrals they got. Let's say that they got peer coaching. So we can fill in a note if we want to. And they also got transportation support. They got a referral to housing, but not through our agencies. We'll hit that for referral ref. So now it looks like everything should be matching our data dictionary. I'm doing this on the fly, so let's see how it goes. And if we encounter any errors, we can fix them. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit upload now. So we've gone through the steps. Let me make sure that this is saved as a CSV. So File, Save As, and from the dropdown, it's CSV right here. Make sure it's comma delimited and hit save. And that's fine. All right, so it's saved properly. We think that it's going to pass the data dictionary checks. So let's go ahead and get to the right folder and get our new client information and hit submit. And great, it took it the first time. So we uploaded one client and it uploaded one visit. Go back to our data portal and we can see that there's now a record for Emily Richards, who came in today as of the recording of this video, September 30th. She received treatment for opioid use disorder and stimulant use disorder. See that we spell it out on the system. She received treatment with Sublocade. She initiated treatment. If we wanted to see more about this record, we can edit it using this pencil button. When we edit it, we can see more detail about some of these other services. We can see her notes. And if you wanted to have a hybrid approach, if for some reason you needed to upload bulk data and then switch to submitting visit records, you can do that just by submitting a visit record on the sheet. Anything that you want to enter here. So let's say she just came in and she still had the same diagnosis. We gave her a couple of referrals, then she left. So you can add more visit information, and you can then collect a history of notes. describing whatever it is that you'd like to keep track of for a client. So that's how you go from a bulk upload to the data that's in the system, and you can take it right back down from the system as well using the download button. So let's get Emily's data back down. And there we see the data that we had entered in the web form before, this data here that we just uploaded. And we see that it's all formatted nicely and gives us a sense of what has happened in the patient's history.